This is Chet Huntley reporting.
Tonight, the talk in Vandalia.
We've always had a quiet town, went their way, never interfered with others, just passed the time of day. And one morning, something happened. A stranger came to town, and it didn't take him very long to turn it upside down. There's just one thing I gotta say. Joe Lyford ain't no sap, 'cause the talk that's in Vandalia sure put us on the map.
Now, as I heard Joe Lyford's talk here a few minutes ago, I couldn't find a thing matter with the city of Vandalia. Now, I think you should tell. You're an educated man. I mean to say you are an intellectual. You are from Harvard. Now, what I want to ask is, what in the hell is wrong with Vandalia? And let Mr. Lyford tell me now what's wrong with Vandalia. I haven't been able to find out what it is.
These men are talking about a book written on their hometown, Vandalia, Illinois. It provoked a storm of argument and debate all over America, as well as in Vandalia. We hear a great deal of worried comment these days about how the small town is dying out as our cities grow larger and devour the surrounding countryside. It is true that we have become a nation of urban rather than rural dwellers. 126 million Americans, 70% of our population, now live in urban centers. Perhaps we should remind ourselves, however, that 54 million Americans continue to live in small towns or in the countryside. There are still 17,000 small towns with a population of 5,000 or under that are alive and kicking. They kick very loudly and very vociferously indeed at any suggestion that their hometown is in danger of dying out. Vandalia is a case in point. There was nothing unusual about Vandalia until this book was written about it. Vandalia's main claim to fame is that it was once the capital of Illinois. Abe Lincoln served here in the legislature. It was also the terminal point of the Cumberland Trail, memorialized in this statue of a pioneer mother known as the Madonna of the Trail. This sense of history sits lightly on the people of Vandalia. They are proud of it, but they have never sought to commercialize it. The town's largest hotel, the Evans, stands on a nearby corner. It was at the Evans that Joseph P. Lyford, who wrote the controversial book, made his headquarters.
About a year and a half ago, the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions decided, as part of a study of the American character, to do a series of reports on small American communities. We hope to find out what people were thinking about in these communities, what their problems were, how they reacted to each other, what they thought were the answers to some of these problems. Well, the first of these studies we decided would be of a Midwestern town. Because I'd been born and grown up in an Illinois town, I decided I'd like to try it in Illinois. And I wanted to get a town that was not a suburb of anything. It was fairly independent, surrounded by an agricultural area, that had a little history to it, that was picturesque, and that hadn't had any big problems, such as a big plant come down on top of it to change its character. Well, I looked at the map, and there was a town named Vandalia on the Kaskaskia River. I remembered this town as having been mentioned in one of Abraham Lincoln's diaries, and it was the first capital of Illinois, I believe. So it looked interesting. I packed my bags, bought a ticket, and came out here. The impressions that I had in my visit to Vandalia, my conversations with the people here, were very strong, and they've been very lasting. I think one of the things about this community that struck me most was the fact that while it's a small town where you'd expect self-government to be fairly highly developed, where people meet each other, talk to each other every day, that there didn't seem to be any really developed system of self-government. There didn't seem to be any sort of town meeting type of place where people met to discuss their problems in concert. I couldn't find any evidence that the people had developed a habit of coming together as a group, debating, arguing with each other, expressing opinions out loud, and then arriving at joint decisions. And this seems to me to be some sort of a failure of democracy. There are certainly very serious problems that this community faces. They're not problems that this community is responsible for necessarily. They seem to be problems that a lot of communities all over the United States face, small towns. One of the problems is raised by automation and technology. Automation is doing away with factory jobs. It's revolutionizing the operation of farms in this area, and the results are pretty serious in terms of the future. More and more farmers are leaving the land.
Land is getting to be rather high in this particular territory. For what it will produce, the individual farmer can hardly afford to own it.
Farming today is quite a large undertaking. It involves quite a large capital investment, and the returns most generally is very small compared to the original investment most farmers have to make.
Farms are getting bigger and bigger, and this means less employment in the future on the farms. There's less of a place for high school students when they graduate to go for work. They don't have the jobs anymore on the farm because those jobs are handled by machines. The Chamber of Commerce has done some very good work in bringing small industry to this community. But in the future, if factories are going to disappear, unskilled and semi-skilled jobs are going to disappear. There's also the question of wages. Some of the people in the factories, many of them, are paid as little as $1.17 an hour. And there are men who have worked in the factory jobs. Paying as little as they do may vanish under the impact of automation and technology.